All right, let's dive into a story that literally coils through the very fabric of mythology. It's a story of sacrifice, of unbelievable devotion, and it's all about one being who sits at the center of some of the most epic events you can imagine. So I want you to picture a creature of just immense power. We're talking about a being whose breath alone could poison the very air you breathe, whose slightest touch meant it was all over. This wasn't just some snake, this was a serpent king, ruling over a subterranean empire of unimaginable riches and power. Okay, now hold that image in your head and imagine that same terrifying creature draped around the neck of Lord Shiva, the god of cosmic destruction. Not like a prisoner, not as a symbol of conquest, but as a cherished, beloved ornament. So why? I mean, why would a being with that kind of terrifying power choose a life of complete service? How does a king, a powerful king, become an ornament? Well, that's the central question, isn't it? It's the mystery right at the heart of the Serpent King's tale. To even begin to answer that, we've got to understand who Vasuki really was. See, he wasn't just any old serpent. He was a king, he was a son, and he was a brother with a pretty unique destiny ahead of him. Vasuki's lineage was, to put it mildly, impressive. He ruled over Nagalok, which was this incredible underworld kingdom filled with palaces literally carved out of jewels. But, more important than all his power was his character. He was known everywhere as a just and noble king, someone who ruled his people with total fairness and wisdom. Now, what makes Vasuki's story so fascinating is when you put him side by side with his more famous older brother, Sheshnag. Sheshnag, he's all about strength. He literally serves as the cosmic bed for Lord Vishnu. But Vasuki, he chose a totally different path, one of sacrifice and pure devotion to Lord Shiva. Both of them are great, for sure, but their destinies couldn't be more different. And that brings us to a really critical point. How does a king, with an entire kingdom at his command, just turn his back on all of it? Well, the answer lies in one of the most intense, hardcore acts of devotion you'll ever hear about. Vasuki gave up everything. I mean, he left his throne, his palace, his subjects, and went to a remote cave in the Himalayas. For years, he just sat there in meditation. He didn't eat, he didn't drink. Storms raged, snow buried him, fires burned all around him, but he stayed perfectly still. His focus was absolute, chanting just one name over and over again. So finally, Lord Shiva himself appears, completely moved by this unbelievable penance. He tells Vasuki, ask for anything you want. Power, riches, immortality, you name it. And Vasuki's reply, well, it tells you everything you need to know about him. He asked for nothing for himself. His only wish was to just always be near Shiva, serving him. And for that act of pure, selfless devotion, Shiva gave him an honor that nobody else had ever received. He lifted Vasuki up and placed him right around his own neck, making him an eternal companion. This is where you see it plain as day. True devotion isn't about asking, it's about giving. The reward wasn't power, it was nearness, a pure, unbreakable connection. But this new life of devotion, it was about to be tested in the most physically brutal way you can imagine, during a huge cosmic event that would literally decide the fate of the entire universe, the Samudra Manthan, the great churning of the ocean. You see, the gods and the demons, they needed a rope, but not just any rope, one strong enough to churn the entire cosmic ocean, using a mountain as the churning stick. So they came to Vasuki, and he agreed. He became that rope. As they pulled his body back and forth, scraping him against that mountain, all these magnificent treasures started emerging from the ocean. It really looked like victory was just around the corner. And then it all went horribly wrong. Before they got to the nectar of immortality, the ocean coughed up its deadliest secret, halahal, a poison so unbelievably potent it threatened to burn the entire cosmos down to nothing. Everything started to die. Gods, demons, they all ran for their lives. Only Shiva could stop it. He stepped forward and drank the poison, saving all of creation. It was so strong it turned his throat blue. That's why he's called Nilkanth. And through all of that, Vasuki was right there, wrapped around his neck, feeling the searing, white-hot heat of that cosmic poison. But he didn't pull away. No, in his lord's greatest moment of sacrifice, he held on even tighter. It's a perfect symbol that true strength is about enduring pain for the good of everyone else. And believe it or not, this wasn't a one-and-done deal. Later on, when Shiva needed a bowstring powerful enough to destroy the demon city of Tripura, guess who stepped up? Vasuki once again offered his own body. He became the living instrument of divine will, enduring pain we can't even imagine for the sake of the cosmos. But as we're about to see, the greatest test for Vasuki wasn't physical, not even close. It was the deep emotional agony of a king who had to watch his own people, his entire race, face total and complete annihilation. So this whole tragedy actually started generations before. Vasuki's own mother, Kadru, flew into a rage because her sons refused to help her cheat in a bet. And in that anger, she laid this horrible curse on them, that they would all one day die in a great fire. It was a curse born from a lie, and it doomed the very ones who had stood for truth. And then that day came. A human king, Janamejaya, wanted revenge for his father's death, so he started the Sarpa Yagna, a fire sacrifice specifically designed to wipe out the entire Naga race. Using powerful mantras, serpents were pulled from every corner of the world, totally helpless, straight into these roaring flames. From his throne in Nagalok, Vasuki could hear the screams of his people. And this was the ultimate test of his leadership, having to serve his people by sharing in their pain. Here he was, the mighty king who was a rope for the gods, and now he was completely helpless. He could do nothing but watch his brothers, his subjects, his children perish. You can just imagine him thinking, could one mistake, one single lie from generations ago, really wipe us all out? But there was a tiny glimmer of hope, a prophecy from long, long ago. Vasuki remembered that his sister's son was destined to be their savior. So he sent his young, brilliant nephew, Astika, to the sacrifice. And with his incredible wisdom, Astika managed to impress King Janamejaya so much that the king granted him any wish. Astika's request? End this sacrifice. And just like that, the Naga race was saved. So, after enduring all of that, the physical torment, the emotional devastation, what's the final, lasting legacy of this incredible Serpent King? What does this story really teach all of us? Well, Vasuki's ultimate status is carved in stone in the sacred Bhagavad Gita. When Lord Krishna is describing his own divine nature, he declares, "Of the Nagas, I am Vasuki." I mean, you can't get higher praise than that. There is no greater validation than to be named by God himself as the ultimate example of your kind. When you really look at it, Vasuki's life leaves us with this incredibly profound philosophy. His story shows us that real devotion is all about selfless giving, that true leadership means suffering with and for your people, and that the greatest strength isn't being invincible, it's having the power to endure unbelievable pain for the good of others. And all of that brings us to a final thought. Vasuki's story is one of ultimate sacrifice, driven by devotion, by loyalty, and by love for his people. And it kind of makes you wonder, right? When you look at your own life and the things you believe in most deeply, what's the greatest sacrifice you'd be willing to make?